All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Hotfix. We are, of course, with SpeedRunsLive doing season 2. We're in the real thick of it right now. This is week 8 out of the 9-week regular season, and as always, happy to be joined by my good friend Boney.
Hey,
how's it going, Boney?
How's it going? Pretty good.
Good.
We're getting into the thick of it, as you said. There's not much time left. People are establishing how good they are at season 2, learning games. It's getting intense. We're almost in playoffs.
I know, it's so close. So speaking of playoffs, I mean, I guess now is as good as any time to kind of refresh everybody's minds about how this season 2 works exactly.
Yeah, let's do it. So we have a 9-week season, basically. Every single week, players who are interested in learning the game will have 1 week to pick up the game, kind of learn the route as well as they possibly can. And at the end of that week-long period, which is where we are now, we have a race of the game where people just try to do as well as they can in the race, get the best possible time, and they get points based on their placement. And once we finish today's race, we will reveal next week's game, and that's kind of how the whole structure goes. But we are at week 8 of 9, so we will end today's stream with the reveal of the final game of season 2.
That's it. No more reveals anymore. Kind of weird.
That'd be a good one. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Yeah, we're pretty much at the end of the regular season. I'm excited and ready for the playoffs, but first we're gonna kind of have to finish this 2 weeks off and see who exactly is going to make it to the top 16. So we're going to narrow it down to 16 players and then get right into a 2-week playoff weekend special. So it'll be 1 weekend worth of matches and then the second weekend worth of matches. It'll be pretty exciting. It'll be definitely longer streams, a lot longer than our regular streams, but that's cool.
Oh yeah.
We'll kind of explain that. I think we'll dedicate a little bit of time next week to kind of explain how the playoffs are going to work But for now, let's kind of get into Rocket Knight Adventures, which is our Week 8 game. Pretty cool Genesis platformer. What do you like about this game, Bonnie?
It's very fast and very hard. I think it's a good contrast to some of the more recent games we've seen, where pretty much every death that you take is going to be quite punishing, and I feel like every section of this game is just difficult in general. But yeah, there's a lot of learning boss patterns and whatnot. It's kind of different from the more recent games we've seen, but it's hard and it's fast. That kind of summarizes what we want in a lot of season games, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And most importantly, it's a lot different than our last 2 weeks because it's not going to be a very straightforward, oh yeah, I died, I lost like 5 seconds. No, you may very well just like game over and you're just screwed.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's the thing.
it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Well, without further ado, I want to introduce our game-specific commentator for the week, Mike89. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
It's only what, like 5, 6 a.m. for you right now?
Pushing 3:30 at the moment.
Okay. All right, it's no big deal, right?
Thanks, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, that's easy. I'm fine, honestly. I work the night shift anyway.
Okay.
The thing I'm most worried about is waking the people up in the complex. So I'll try and keep my voice down a little bit.
All right. Well, yeah. So Mike, I mean, tell me a little bit more about Rocket Knight Adventures. Like, why is it like such a really cool speed game?
See, Rocket Knight Adventures has a fairly interesting history as far as speedrunning is concerned. So when we did the very first Games Done Quick, Classic Games Done Quick, there were a lot of comments throughout and after the event, why didn't you play Rocket Knight Adventures? And, the answer to any of those kind of questions was because we didn't have anyone that could do it. But the fact that Rocket Knight Adventures came up so much, none of us really knew that much about it. And so we all dug into it a few months afterwards, and myself, Yama, and Vorpal in particular picked it up and got fairly good at it. The game's advanced a lot since then, but yeah, it ended up being featured in the next GDQ and has maintained at least a little bit of a following ever since.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very interesting game. Pretty cool. Like, I know a lot of people, obviously, they remember the Genesis for Sonic games and whatnot, but I feel like this is the type of game that's very, like, beloved. It has a really good fan base. It's pretty exciting.
I think even now you're seeing that there's a lot of games on the Genesis that most people don't remember as much because they were Nintendo kids.
Sure.
And there's still a lot of untapped resources on the Genesis if you're looking for interesting games to speedrun that nobody's really seen up to this point.
Gotcha. So yeah, let's kind of like dive into a little bit more with Rocket Knight Adventures. We have a few game.
Actually stick to the ground, and when the boost ends, you can jump to maintain a lot of your speed, and we call that possum hopping because it's not quite bunny hopping. In this clip, you're seeing both what happens when you do actually get a couple of jumps and you maintain it over a decent stretch, and there's also some instances where you see that I can't jump in that particular area, and I just let it run out, and it drops off very quickly if you don't jump. If we go to the next clip, the next clip shows what happens when you do boosts in the air. Physics are a little different when you boost in the air. You can see Sparkster going into this kind of falling animation. Once the boost runs out, you arc back towards the ground, but you've got no control over yourself. But you can see that I actually fall straight through an enemy there. You're actually completely invincible in that mode while you have no control until you touch the ground. As soon as you get control back, you're vulnerable again. So it's a bit of a risk-reward thing. You shouldn't really use your boost unless you know exactly where you're going to land. So the movement is one major part of getting fast times in this game. The other one is the combat. So if we go to the next video, which shows off combat, there's a lot of boss fights in this game. There's something in the region of 25 separate boss instances throughout this game. There's two different type of boss fights, and this clip actually shows one of each. The first one is what I call a hit-based boss. These bosses take 1 damage from any source of damage, whether it's the sword, the projectile, or the boost, and they have significant iframes between hits. You can't actually get more than like a hit every half second or second, depending on the boss. The second type, so once the bridge breaks and you go into the second phase of the fight, that's a HP-based boss, and the different types of attacks actually matter here. So typically these bosses have no iframes at all, and you can stack damage very quickly. In particular, surprisingly, the basic sword swing is actually a very good attack. It does 4 damage a frame, and the sword stays out for 8 frames, and then as soon as that attack ends, you can use another one. So you can actually deal damage very quickly. On top of that, you can actually position yourself inside the boss. You see Sparks is basically inside that boss the whole time, and the sword is constantly doing damage. Then you also have the boost as an option. The boost does more damage initially, but then you get knocked away afterwards, and it's a while before you can use it again. There are some instances where you have to use it though, so going on to the next clip. What you're seeing here is a boss towards the end of the game, which is immune to the sword swing. You have to use boost to damage it. Generally speaking, if you're going to use the boost to damage something, you want to use orthogonal directions, up, down, left, right. Boosts in those directions do 32 damage on impact. Diagonal ones only do 16. Upon impact, you go into a spinning state as well. You see it there. That mode does 1 damage every frame it connects as well. As you can see, diagonal ones do have some use though, because you get pretty good recoil off them, and it can get you out of the way of damage. You can see how it gets me out of the way into the corner there. And again, briefly, you see that panic state where you're invincible until you hit the ground. So those are some little things you should be looking out for as you watch the runners in this game.
Cool. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of like very, I guess like little nuances to this game that you have to kind of look out for. Kind of curious to see how our newer competitors fare with these sorts of things.
Yeah, everybody's definitely going to have their own way of handling certain situations.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so yeah, without further ado, I think that let's just talk about some of the runners that we have. So we have 2 runners that are very experienced in this game, and 2 of our newer runners. So let's start off with Dragon and Vorpal. If you want to tell me a little bit about them, Mike or Boney.
I'll get the new people.
Okay.
All right, so Vorpal, as I mentioned, has been around this game a long time, and you guys know Vorpal. He will often come to a game after not having streamed too much for about a year, just come and demolish that game for about a month, and then disappear off into the shadows again. He's fairly active at the moment.
For now.
Yeah, fairly active at the moment, and has been, testing little strategies, helping to make the route even faster, which is where Dagron comes in. He actually, about 3 weeks ago, I'm not sure, became the first person to beat this game in under 27 minutes, which is a very impressive time.
Yeah, I was looking at his splits when I was watching his run, and he's within 20 seconds of his summer best. That's pretty good.
Ouch. Jeez. And they're like a minute ahead of everyone else, right? They've got quite a lead.
Yeah, I think the 3rd place time might be Shadow Jackie with a high 27. I haven't actually seen the leaderboard in a while. It might be worth checking that.
Yep.
Nice.
So they're pretty good. That's what we're getting at here.
Yeah.
Pretty good. All right. So expect a close race from them. And I guess the other side of our featured four, we have Ramses, who I think we all know at this point. He's kind of winning the whole season. Just really, really good at every game he picks up. He actually has a 31:28 right now, so only a few minutes behind the best times, which is quite good considering he just
That is
picked
a
up this week.
genuinely incredible time for somebody who's only spent a week on this.
Mhm. And our fourth other player is ACMLM. I think we featured him last week as well. Also pretty high up there in the season leaderboards. He has a mid 32, so he's about a minute behind Ramses. I don't recall exactly what the time is, but yeah, we have a lot of times in that range. I think we can expect a pretty close race from our newer players. Obviously, this game is quite volatile though, so it's a bit hard to say. But a lot of our good players are in that 32, 33 range, I would say.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see like how they're able to get this good at this game this fast. I expected like a pretty like huge spread between the times for this game.
Yeah,
Not gonna lie,
same.
but no, it just shows you how good these guys are that are participating every week. So yeah, without I think that's a good way to segue into our leaderboard, kind of show everybody what's going on with the standings. So of course, our top 16 are going to be getting into the playoffs. So really, anybody in this top 20 still has a chance. Like, there's really not too many points separating 20th and 16th place. So it's going to be interesting to see who ends up being part of the top 16, who ends up getting in a good spot. Like, I see like ACM, he's definitely been climbing. I remember, I think he was like 8th or 9th like a week or two ago. So he's been climbing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's getting up there.
Yeah. So Ramses has been at the top for a long time, but I mean, who knows what will happen in the playoffs? The playoffs are the reason, right? One seed doesn't win every time.
That's right. Yeah, I'm excited. He's definitely the favorite, but a little part of you wants to root against him and see the upset. Everyone loves upsets.
So yeah,
it's gonna be
so
good.
Yeah,
getting close.
We're getting into it. So we got just this game and next week, and that's it. So yeah, so that's pretty much gonna wrap it up for our preview show for this game. So we are going to go ahead and take a quick break while we wait for the race to start at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is in about 15 minutes. So stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, everybody, welcome back. Without further ado, let's begin this awesome race of SpeedRunsLive Season 2, Week 8 with Rocket Knight Adventures.
All right, who's gonna win?
Ooh.
You got Mike.
I can't go past Dagron. His
All right.
consistency is through the roof at the moment.
All right, I got Vorpal then. Vorpal's my man. And that's really all we got. I don't think anyone else is a strong contender here.
Pretty much.
That makes it more
Yeah.
intense when you know it's going to be one of two people.
So I'm going to have to beat the tiebreaker, and I'm just have to go with Vorpal. There you go.
There you go.
Wow, you've got no faith in the record holder. Yes, you can see immediately the difference between the people that know where to jump and bunny hop and keep their speed versus the ones that are just playing it for the first time. Or, you know, not the first time, you know what I mean.
So what do you think the hardest parts of this game are? Like, what are going to be the most dangerous portions for even the good people?
Okay, so as far as like jostling for position, I may have mentioned earlier that stage 6, which is the one where you're flying around in space, has no checkpoints in it at all. So you can, if you have a bad run through that, you can lose like upwards of 1.5 minutes if you die in the wrong place.
Ouch. Yeah, that's not good.
Which, you know, if lots of people are putting up 32, 33, 34-minute times, then, you know, that could be several places you lose just right there.
Yeah, very true. And would you say the earlier sections are among the easier ones? Is there anything
Oh yeah, definitely.
terribly tough early on? Okay.
Yeah, these flying around sections, you don't have the boost option, but you do, you know, you have horizontal and vertical movement, and you move around quite quickly. So there's no, you can see Dagron taking out the snake boss already. You can basically just lodge yourself in its hitbox and just wail on it all day. Most bosses are very quick when you can do that, at least the HP variants. Game also has several auto-scrollers. They're in the first one now, the two at the top. What you'll see them do is they're actually going to try and take quite a bit of damage because at the end of each stage, the game runs a countdown of your health, and the most it can be is 12,800 if you have full health, and I believe the lowest you can get it to is either 400 or 800. As you can imagine, with how, you know, it ticks down 100 points at a time, so, you know, that's a couple of seconds every stage. That's nothing to scoff at high levels of play. So you see Dagron's on half a heart and Vorpal's on 2.5. So he may try and take a hit in the fight, or he might just take the loss.
They get a full health replenishment when they start the next stage?
Yeah. Health doesn't carry over.
Very close between our two sets of players right now. See who pulls ahead between Ramses and ACM. They're like completely neck and neck. And obviously,
let's see,
our
how many
top
hits
players
did
are-
Rams? Oh, he did get enough. Okay. If you don't have 11 hits by the time the boss comes out of the middle hole the second time, then he'll go into a really slow attack phase. You really want to avoid that if you can.
Are there a lot of bosses that just have phases that are entirely skipped usually then?
No, that's pretty much the
Oh,
only
okay.
one, actually. It's kind of bizarre. And the fact that it's 11 hits you need to have by that point, like, why 11? It's so
Yeah.
strange.
That's an odd number. You're right.
It's
about that.
like, if it was the number of hits required to end the fight on one difficulty or another, that would make a little bit of sense, but it's not. It takes 12 on normal and 15 on hard. So top two are coming up on another auto scroller, the section. You can do some really funny things with the boost in this area, but it doesn't actually matter because you're always tied to the position of the cart as long as it's not flashing. When you start transitioning between areas, the minecart will start flashing, and that means that you can actually move off it. If it's not flashing, then it stays in place. On the bottom, you're seeing ACMLM handling the snake boss. Might not be perfectly easy to tell because of the size of the screen, but there's it can be in the foreground or the background, and if you're in the foreground, then you can only hit it when it's in the foreground and vice versa. And you switch between the foreground and background by standing on the platforms on the bottom of the stage. Boosting between those platforms to save a little bit of time up the top. And again, Vorpal and Dagron are going to run their health down a bit. They do want a little bit of health for the train because it's it's very easy to lose, to take hits on the train anyway, but it's actually also faster to take a couple of hits so that you can wedge yourself in the hitbox, particularly on the third phase. You'll see what I mean when we get there. This second phase of the train is the hands. The hands actually have a shared HP value. You don't have to get a certain amount of hits on the left hand, a certain amount of hits on the right hand. It's shared between the two hands. Now, actually in these transition areas, if you face right, you'll be pushed back to the left hand side of the screen. So they made sure they were left when the screen transitioned, and then Dagron was also facing left when he got hit, so watch on Vorpal's screen, you'll see the same strategy. He's going to turn around, show he's facing left when he gets hit, so he gets knocked back to the right, has heaps of iframes, and just continues to mash the weak point with the sword.
So what does the looking away thing do? I think I missed the point of that. You just get to abuse invulnerability frames a bit.
Yeah, so you get knocked, when you take damage, you get knocked the opposite direction to that which you're facing. So,
I see.
So it just turns left just before he's about to get hit, so that he gets knocked to the right where the boss is, and just deals significant damage very quickly.
Is that a mechanic in other fights as well, or just that one?
Yeah, you'll see it in a couple other fights.
Okay. There are a lot of different approaches to bosses in this game. I think that's kind of interesting. I feel like a lot of boss fights, or a lot of games, have very similar and repetitive approaches to bosses, but this game has some pretty unique stuff, it seems.
Yeah, this crab boss is a good example of that too. So there are several things going on with the crab fight. So you have the two claws here, and then you have the head, which is the actual weak point. The head takes 50 hits to kill, but if you take out the left claw, then it loses half of its hit points, and if you take out the right claw, it loses 3/4 of its hit points. So the strategy is to take out the right claw as quickly as you can, and then get the remaining hits on the head.
That's weird. Very weird designs to bosses in this game, but I like it. I feel like it'd be very interesting to just try to figure out how these things were even programmed, and I don't know.
Yeah, when you run enough old games, it does.
Makes sense.
Man, the race between Ramses and ACM right now is pretty darn close.
Yeah,
they're both in what's a pretty scary room in stage 3. I call it the fish room because you have fish spawning essentially randomly. If you take the exact same path through the area, they will be consistent. But if you do anything different, then they'll spawn in different places, and it's not consistent at all. And Dagron just took a really bad death, actually. So you guys might be in business.
Uh-oh.
See. Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a long time between attack cycles on this fight, so death there is fairly costly.
It's interesting because, like, you know, I look at this game on the surface, it seems like there's a lot of auto-scrollers and, of course, boss fights to them. So, like, on the surface, you wouldn't think, you know, there's a lot of, like, disparity between the runs, but there's just, I guess, a lot of, like, little things that go on with all the boss fights and the auto-scrollers that kind of adds up in terms of time.
Yeah, definitely. So, actually, the game lags a lot. So even like, so you saw what Ramses is doing there, he's attacking all of these bats. Every time that the enemy flashes when you attack it, it causes something like 8 frames of lag. So you can save like 2 seconds on this screen, even though it's complete auto-scroller, just by not attacking any of the enemies.
Wow.
Yeah, which, you know, you have a week to learn the game. You're not gonna come across something like that.
Yeah. Have either of you noticed if our newer players are taking any damage to save the time, the stage transition? I imagine they wouldn't be. I'm just curious if either of them are.
Yeah, it could be incidental as much as anything.
That's
like-
fair. Yeah.
What are they on? They're on 6 hearts and 5 hearts, I think. It's hard to tell exactly, but
Yes.
yeah, they seem to be playing fairly safe.
Would you go for those damage boosts, Mike? Even though, you know, you said you like to play this game a little bit safe.
Oh, sorry, I missed the question.
I said, like, I know you said that you'd like to play this game safe, but was that something that you were doing back when you were playing this game?
Yeah, so like the kill that they just got on the fish there. So if you take damage, then you can move safely into the position where you can get a lot of swings on that boss as it pops out. It's only vulnerable for about a second, and then, you know, if you don't get a 1-round kill, it's about 30 seconds before it comes out again. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, you really need to make sure that you finish it off in 1 round if you can.
Vorpal's quite a bit ahead now. Daggeron took a death at the end of that sky screen, so he had to fight that boss twice, lost a bunch of time.
Yeah, I've never really agreed with his path on that screen. But yeah, you can see how costly some of the deaths actually are, because even that boss isn't a checkpoint. You go right back to the start of this screen where you're working back to the left.
Yeah, that's rough. Ramses is actually not far behind Daggeron.
Oh yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like
very
these guys are both, you know, not far behind at all, keeping very good pace. And you know, this is stage 4, and stage 5 and stage 6 are fairly auto-scroller heavy. 7 is the one where you're going to see the biggest difference between the experienced runners and the new runners.
Are there any more big choking points, would you say? I don't know what to refer to them as, but is Vorpal in good shape now, or are there other
Vorpal's
big
in
deaths?
pretty good shape. The second half of stage 5, actually, so after he gets through these 2 auto-scroller bosses, pretty much all the enemies in that area are actually one-shot kills. So I don't think it's going to happen, but there's a chance he could.
Sure.
lose.
Is that the space section we were talking about?
No, the space section is stage 6, so coming up after this. But yeah, so once he goes inside the castle here, all of these kind of armored enemies will one-shot you. But that's a checkpoint. And I think every room here is a checkpoint now. So you see, just using the diagonal boost just to fall down that little bit faster.
Yeah. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I really wish this game had more sections like that, just straight up platforming and bouncing off walls, because it's really cool to see fast movement like that.
Yeah, definitely. I also wish it had more open sections like the first stage. So
Yeah.
we talked a lot about the the possum hopping strategy that you do to maintain boost speed off a ground boost, and you really don't get to see it beyond the first stage because the stage design just doesn't allow for it, which is a little bit unfortunate.
Do you know if the Sparkster games have more of that kind of gameplay in it?
So there are two games called Sparkster, one for the Genesis, Super Nintendo, and they are completely different games.
Yeah.
Like to the extent that they even use the boost completely differently. Like I think the Genesis one charges boosts like Rocket Knight Adventures does, but Sparkster you just press a button to do a boost, and it I think that you can only use one every X amount of time. I don't know exactly how it works. I've not played that one yet. Something Dracodan gives me shit for all the time.
Yeah, they're all pretty unique though, right?
Yeah, they're all fairly different from each other. So this section with the rainbow spikes here, if you touch any of them, they're instant death, and this screen is fairly long and an auto-scroller. So of course you're going to see Vorpal just jump off the edge of the platform and do a boost that if he missed even slightly would cost about 45 seconds.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that personally I would never go for. I'd be too afraid. Even though it looks pretty simple, no. And I like those parts of these games. Yeah. I like seeing people be under pressure and make that decision.
This is a pretty unique boss fight, this one. The Rock'em Sock'em robots.
I love this boss.
So for the first 3 hits, Axel will walk towards you, and then for the next 5, as soon as you get in range of his arms, he'll swing. So what he might try and do, since he's on 2.5 hearts, and a hit from Axel does 2 hearts, he might try and get a trade on this last hit. Nah, he didn't go for it. Some runners like to just save a little bit of time on health if they've got 2.5 coming in here. We'll see if Dagron goes for it. Saves a little bit of time on the health countdown at the end. Try and run your health down a little bit more.
Alright, so here's the space stage.
Yeah.
So Vorpal needs to die here, right? That's what we're getting at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so every wave of attacks in the... Oh, he got the trade, nice. Every wave of attacks in the space stage, you actually want to, like... If you kill off all the enemies, it'll drop an apple, particularly in the early ones. Then there are segments later on where you either want to kill a bunch of enemies or collect all of the apples. If you collect all of the apples or kill all of the enemies, then the screen will actually transition to the next wave of enemies faster. So you need to make sure that you collect the drop.
Alright, I noticed Ramses just waited at the end of that section so he didn't take the minute death. Let's see if ACM does it.
I'm still very impressed with how well they're keeping.
Yeah, they're not too far behind. Probably PB pace. Ramses has this thing where he seems to get a PB in every single race, so see if he keeps up a streak.
Okay, this boss is really long and boring, unfortunately. There are long periods where you can't actually attack it at all.
Okay,
it
one
just
of those.
floats. It just flies around like this, being like, "Oh, look at how powerful my ship is." surprised they didn't take that bottom turret out, because the turrets actually remain either there or not there, depending on whether you kill them early on. If you kill that bottom one, it becomes... Oh, okay. Yeah, so he stands the other side of it so it doesn't activate. And he doesn't waste the lag frames killing it. Yeah, it's going to take a hit from the ship. The ship does heaps of damage. It does 4 hearts on easy. And considering he's got to whittle down his health eventually anyway. Get it done all at once pretty quick like that. The only worry is, of course, if he gets hit twice, then he dies and has to sit through that hole. Oh, look at me section again. This second phase where he's in the kind of mech form as well, I think it's 22 seconds between opportunities to hit it. So there's a lot of just sitting and waiting here and then shooting this ball as it comes out, which you probably only barely saw because he hit it quite quickly there.
How far behind Vorpal's PB do you think he is right now? Just in reference, I feel like he's having a pretty good run. I know he did lose a bit of time, but
yeah, I'm trying to think how long stage 7 is. He's probably on solid 28 pace.
Okay, yeah, that's quite good.
Yeah. So, because I think he had some flubs early on as well, but not as big as Dagron did.
Right. Do you think there are other big concerns for Vorpal left on the run?
Probably not, although this this first boss in stage 7 is really interesting. So this is the boss that's immune to sword swings. You have to use the boost. And so what he's doing is he's trying to get really close to the boss's hitbox, but without being in it. And what you can do if you position it just right is do upward boosts. You get the 32 damage from the boost and then maximum spin damage as well. And you're in the perfect position where you don't actually get hit by the swing of his sword. And all you have to do is dodge the lower projectiles.
Okay.
Okay, you may see some very interesting strategies on this first phase of Axel. No, Vorpal's playing it safe. So this is the safe version of the fight where you face away from Axel and, oh, okay, now he's switching into a quick one. So you see he's getting hits one after the other immediately. You have to time swings to do that. It's very precise. The safe version of it is you face away from him. If you face away from him, he'll always do 2 projectile shots, and you can time a jump over them fairly easily. And then you can hit with the backside of the slash. And Vorpal has 1 heart going into the Hell Room. This Hell Room is aptly named. These, yeah, these guys are scary. He took a death immediately, and I reckon just looking at the way he approached it.
Yeah, that might have been a good choice. I'm just really impressed by the bosses in this game in general. Like, I'm not a big boss fan generally speaking, but just the design is really good and it seems very speedrun friendly. It's rare to find a good speedrun boss, but this game has a lot of variety and a lot of different tech to approach different bosses with.
Oh wow, Ramses is doing that strat I was talking about, where he was on the right pixel.
Oh,
That's
wow. High level.
Yeah, he's definitely gone in deep on this game. Okay, so both Dagger and Vorpal are on the final boss now. Interesting thing about the final boss, whenever it's doing a laser, if you're charging your boost, that actually causes a ton of lag, and you don't want to do it. But you don't need to, because you don't have to attack in that phase anyway. This boss, you'll see, you may just see like a red thing pops out. That's its weak point. There are 4 phases to the fight, and each one causes it to appear in a different sort of way. So Vorpal is on the 3rd phase, so the weak point will always appear in one of the top 3 spots. And so what he tries to do is do a boost and pass and kind of spin up through the boss, and that, if you position it exactly right, can actually hit all 3 of them, but covers 2 of the spots nicely, and 90% of the time it's in the middle anyway. He actually did that one too early. The last phase always appears in the bottom corner opposite to where you're standing. So you can just stand in a certain spot and just boost up and left, and you'll always hit it. Anyway, so Vorpal's won. There's an auto scroller after this.
Okay. Unlikely it'll die there, right?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a mid 27, because it's a minute 10 from, I think, the fade out here.
Okay. That's really good.
That is a very solid time.
Yeah, it's not too far behind his PB.
There's only 2 people in the world that have beaten that time, and both of them are on this stream at the moment.
Nice. All right. Well, good stuff to Vorpal.
I actually like the way AC was doing that fight. Did you see it? So he was facing away from Axel, but charging a boost the whole time. So he figured out that facing away caused him to do the projectiles, stood away from the projectiles so he didn't get hit, and then boosted back into him for damage.
Huh. Yeah, you mentioned earlier that we're going to see a lot of different approaches to bosses, and I guess you were right. That's cool. Yeah, this final boss is very long. People haven't figured that out already. We're almost out of there. Is this boss even easy, like casually, when you're just learning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, the only time it's scary is when you're doing it on hard mode and everything kills you in one hit, including this.
Yeah, that doesn't sound that easy.
Yeah, like even then, it's not even hard. It's just kind of scary. By the way, Vorpal's finished.
Yeah, Vorpal got a 27:53, so pretty good. That's that's around 30 seconds off his PB. Exactly what it was, but something like that. Yeah, very good run. Sub 28, definitely won the week pretty cleanly, I would say. Dagron has got 28-25. Good stuff. Dracodon finished right behind him, 3rd place, with just 8 seconds off. So very good. Pretty close race between our best runners.
And Dracodon finished just after Dagron's best time by some distance.
Yeah, that's a PB, right? For him?
Oh, it's his PB.
Yep.
Nice. That's really good. Good
Awesome.
race.
And he'll finally be able to hold that over me now, because he...
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. He's been gunning for it all week, and actually for some time prior.
Sorry you had to witness
Gets it in the race, the right time to get it.
Poor Mike. Alright. So Ramses is, I don't know exactly where he is in this fight, but I know he's in the last phase. he actually could get a sub 30 possibly.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. I don't know how many dives he's got left. It's definitely more than one, so I think he's going to be just over 30.
Okay.
Just, another casual 1+ minute PB for Ramses.
Yeah, as you do.
Yeah, we'll see how close he finishes to the world record holder in this race. It's going to be less than 2 minutes, I think.
Yeah, there's 30 minutes, and then after this, he blows up. So that's about 10 more seconds. Yeah.
There you go. Yep, 30
minutes 19.
Less than 2 minutes off of Dagron. And Dragonan. That's really good.
That is super impressive.
Yeah, that's how Ramses goes.
Yep, and AC will be done in less than 2 minutes now as well.
Pretty good.
So he's done with the final boss.
Yeah, so the other runners are pretty much all neck and neck with each other, like right behind ACM. So we really won't be able to show anybody else, unfortunately. I'm very shocked at how close everybody is.
Yeah, everyone in this race really put in the work. Just to refresh your memory, you were expecting like 35's best case scenario for new players?
Yeah, I've been shown, haven't I?
Yeah, they're pretty good. I think pretty much every week our expert commentators have been really impressed with how people have done. So
I think it's because it might be something to do with the fact that, maybe we had less resources when we were learning the game and it took a little longer to get to these kind of periods. I have to thank Dagron in particular. He made a really good tutorial, very in-depth, but also kind of focused on getting people into the game with reasonably simple strategies. And I think it speaks to how effective that was.
Sure.
We have plenty of runners coming in under that 35-minute mark.
Yeah, people were really appreciative of the tutorial and whatnot too. Said it was very helpful, so that's good.
Yeah, it's a game that didn't really have a lot in terms of resources, and it was mostly to do with the fact that, everything's visible on the screen. It's fairly clear what you're doing just by watching it run, but there is a lot of depth in how you handle certain situations.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we just see ACM finishing, and then with a 32-17, that was in 6th place. St. Joe, who is second on the leaderboards right now, actually beat him by about a minute, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, quickly back on that note we were talking about. These people learned this game in a week, and they were within just a few minutes of the absolute best runners who have been playing this game for a while. So just keep that in mind if anyone watching wants to get into speedrunning and they feel scared. Don't. Again, these guys did this in a week, so it's actually not that insanely hard to get into speedrunning. So just keep that in mind. People will help you, and it's very doable. Much more doable than you would think.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so that's pretty much going to do it for this week's stream, or for rather the gameplay portion of the stream. Pretty much every single competitor is in the last stage and finishing up right now, so not really much to show. So we're just going to kind of go with that. Thank you very much, Mike, for your commentary this week. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
My
Mike.
pleasure.
And it's Rocket Knight Adventures was fantastic. Good race to show off. I'm just shocked at how close it was between everyone.
Yeah, I've just seen Argic finish up at 33.51.
Yeah, so that is going to do it for week 8 of SpeedRunsLive Season 2. But before we go, I believe we have something to show off, don't we, Boney?
This is the final one. Yeah, I'm excited. This is one of my favorites of the season. Let's get into it. The final game. I think we all recognize this little dude here.
Wait a sec.
Something's wrong. Oh, Kirby's Dream
Hey!
Course. Here you go. This is the final game of Season 2. We wanted to spice it up, pick something really weird, and actually quite difficult. This game's going to be really insane. So it's actually theoretically easy to learn this game in the sense that you just memorize a lot of paths and whatnot, how to approach your shots, but it goes far beyond that. Execution in this game is quite tough, making sure you get your power right, your angle right, all of the above. And beyond that, you're just going to have to adapt to how you approach the game, how you mess your shots up. Because we all know no one's going to get their execution perfect in this game in a week. There's no chance. So it's going to be good, going to be exciting. This is the game that's going to establish where everyone's seated in the top 16. And obviously people are going to try to get in the top 16 as well, people who are right on that fence. So it's going to be intense. Not a bad game to learn, but you just got to work with what you get, work with your shots, and it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, this is like the chaos game for sure out of the 9. You just have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
When Bodhi first proposed the idea of Kirby's Dream Course as the final one, I was like, I love the idea, but at the same time, I feel like you're being a little bit of a jerk.
You know me. I had to throw
You said scoring is 7 out of 9, right?
What's that?
You said scoring is 7 out of 9.
Oh,
so
yeah. Yep. Yeah, we dropped our worst 2 scorers, so.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
So if you don't need the points, there's
Yeah,
no shame
exactly.
in staying bail. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of our competitors are going to enter because at the very least, it's a very straightforward game to just like play. It's just like kind of like optimizing everything. A little bit like the past games that we have like with Wipeout and Princess Remedy. But I think there's just a little bit more variation in it. And biggest advice, don't get a hole-in-one.
There you go. Just one more shout out too to Blasphemous Roar for making all those trailers. He is finally free. We don't need him anymore, but he's helped out a ton, and I really appreciate the work. He put in a lot. Good trailers too. I like the style that he came up with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you very much, Blasphemous Roar. And yeah, that's our final reveal video. Kind of sad, but it's cool at the same time.
End of an era.
That's right. So yeah, so that's gonna do it. If you have any final thoughts, Mike, feel free to say anything. Otherwise, we'll get to it.
Oh yeah. So would you have 7 people that had picked this game up in a week, and 5 of them come in under 34 minutes? Yeah, I'm pretty impressed. Well done, everyone.
Cool.
And the last 2 are like neck and neck as well, going into the final boss now.
Yeah. All right, so that's gonna wrap it up for this week, season 2, week 8, Rocket Knight Adventures on our GDQ Hotfix. A couple of reminders. I just want to let everybody know that we are still accepting prize submissions for SGDQ 2018. So if you're interested in contributing a prize to our event, we have a guide on our website. You can just go there, click the top header, and you'll see a link for a prize submission guide. So you can check that out.
Sorry, I'll get in with one more thing. If you speaking of SGDQ, if you where this game's being featured in SGDQ, it's Dagron's going to run. It's going to be on the Monday, I believe, in amongst the larger block of Genesis games. So if you enjoyed this week's race, make sure you don't miss that.
There you go. 12:20 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:20 a.m. local time Monday for Rocket Knight Adventures.
Somebody's a tiny bit more prepared than me.
So we have the prize submissions. Just letting everybody know that we have panel submissions going on for SGDQ 2018. So if you're attending SGDQ 2018 and you're interested in potentially running a panel, we have a Twitter post about how to submit. I'm probably going to retweet that a little bit later in the day so you can kind of see that. Panel submissions end Tuesday, so at the end of the day, Pacific time. So just keep that in mind. And our final note of the day. We are going into we're going to talk a little bit about RPG Limit Break because it's pretty cool. This is a week-long event that is focused purely on RPGs. So it's kind of like a GDQ, except all RPGs. It's really cool. Big fan of them and what they do. And they are raising money for NAMI, which is a charity that focuses on mental health. So it's an awesome cause, and we are pretty excited to send you guys over there. We're gonna go ahead and raid them. So go ahead, check out RPG Limit Break, and just tune in all week. Spread the love. Let everybody know what's going on. We'll be there all week, so join us. Appreciate it.